There was a tragedy that took place in Las Vegas this week. It's a tragedy that has affected hundreds and hundreds of families. It's a tragedy which each and every one of us sends our prayers to those who have lost loved ones and to those who have family members who are now hospitalized. We send our prayers to you as well with the great hope that a full recovery is in their future. This was an unimaginable event that occurred in our country, and it is now time for us to talk about this issue. There are many people who say this is not the time to talk about it, but the truth is, the only thing the National Rifle Association wants more than to sell lots of gun silencers is to put a silencer on the debate about gun safety legislation. The only thing the NRA wants more than allowing nationwide concealed carry laws is to conceal the overwhelming support for background checks. The only thing the NRA wants more than to stifle smart gun technology is to stifle debate on gun violence prevention. So to anyone who says having this debate now is too soon, it's already too late for at least 59 people in Las Vegas and hundreds of others who were wounded. We should not wait another day. We need to pass common sense gun safety legislation so that we can hold a moment of silence for the National Rifle Association's stranglehold on American politics. That is what must end in our country. We need a debate on this floor on background checks. We need a debate in this chamber on whether or not we are going to do research on the relationship between guns and violence in our society. And we don't need to debate the issues of bringing silencers into our society that can be attached to guns that would have made it infinitely more difficult for the police to find where the shooter was, and to have not given notice to those people that because of the sound of the guns they could hide, they could move to a more secure location. That would not have happened. We would not have had 59 deaths. We could have had 259 deaths, 559 deaths, 959 deaths, because a silencer would have given less notice to all of those people that they should be moving and hiding and protecting themselves and their loved ones. Concealed carry. The Republicans are moving a bill that allows for someone to conceal a gun under a law in one state, and because that state allows you to conceal a gun, to be able to move into any other state and continue to conceal a gun, even though that state's laws prohibit concealing guns. They want that law to move through. So when the Republicans talk about debating gun control, what they're talking about is lessening the safety around these guns, lowering the standards that would protect, allowing for silencers to now be proliferating on these assault weapons, these weapons of war that should not be on the streets of our country, to have a capacity to be able to kill people without people hearing it. They say it's really needed because we need to protect people's hearing when they're firing assault weapons. Well, it's more important that the police hear the bullets, that the people who might be hit hear the sound of those bullets as they are leaving the gun. That is going to provide far more protection. It's far more important that the police in a state, in a city, know that someone has a concealed weapon. Critically important for police protection. But again, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, it does not want those kinds of protections to remain on the books. That's who they are. That's what they want. What should we be debating? We should be debating background checks. We should be debating whether or not someone should be able to buy a gun on Instagram and turn it into an Insta-gun without background checks. That's what we should be talking about out here. Over 90% of Americans want stronger background checks, and yet the Republican leadership turns a deaf ear to the request of the American people because the National Rifle Association does not want there to be background checks on people who are buying guns in our country. More Americans have died from gun violence in the past 50 years on the streets of America than have died in all of our nation's wars overseas in our entire history. Let me say that again. More people have died from guns in our own country in the last 50 years than all of our soldiers, sailors, Air Force, Marines have died going all the way back to 1776. That's how much of an epidemic this is in our country. An epidemic that now kills 33,000 people every single year in our country. But the federal government's investment in researching gun violence, zero. Diabetes, 76,000 U.S. deaths annually, gets $170 million from the Centers for Disease Control. Flu, 57,000 deaths a year. They get $187 million in research. Asthma, 3,600 deaths a year. $29 million of research at the Centers for Disease Control. Gun violence, zero. Zero. An epidemic is ravaging our country, and the Republicans will not fund research to find this link between violence and the use of guns in our society, to do the research that can help us to reduce this carnage on the streets of our country. And because of an appropriations rider from the 1990s, the Centers for Disease Control hasn't conducted research into causes of gun violence and how to prevent it. If 20 young children in Newtown had died of Ebola, we would have invested funding to study it. If 59 people in Las Vegas died of Zika, would we study it? Oh, absolutely. But our country is suffering from an illness, and we have let it spread because we refuse to write a treatment plan. The American Medical Association supports ending the ban on research. The American Public Health Association supports ending the ban on research. More than 141 groups want to end this ban on researching the link between guns and violence in our society. The bill that I have introduced with Representative Maloney gives $10 million to the Centers for Disease Control every single year. Shouldn't we be studying how to stop people from firing guns, give the medical, the scientific, and the public health community the resources which they need? We need also to develop new smart gun technologies that would improve safety and reduce accidental shootings. My bill would authorize grants to develop and improve personalized handgun technology to increase efficiency and decrease cost. If you can use a fingerprint to operate your iPhone, you should be able to do the same thing for your gun to make sure that safety is ensured, to make sure it's your thumbprint on that gun, that if your gun is stolen, if your gun is lost, that no one else would be able to use that gun. Does that make sense? Well, your thumb can work for your smartphone. Your thumb could also work for a smart gun technology. So this is where we are. We're at this critical point where some people are saying, not now, inappropriate, we shouldn't be raising these issues. But what we should be debating is what the American people want us to debate. Over 90% want background checks on anyone who buys a gun in our country, to make sure that they are qualified, to make sure that they do not have something in their background that should disqualify them from owning a gun in our country. Our debate here should really be about one thing: making the NRA stand for not relevant anymore in American politics. And the test of the Republican Party is it will be whether or not they just kill these bills that would legalize more fully silencers being put on automatic weapons in our country, to kill the concealed carry law, which is moving through the House and Senate, driven by Republicans, and instead to debate the kinds of things that make our country safer, the kinds of things that poll after poll are showing that the American people want us to do. So that is going to be our challenge in the days and weeks and months ahead. But this is the time, this is the place, we are the people who must be conducting this debate to make sure that we add an extra measure of safety that American families can rely upon. Mr. President, I yield back the balance of my time.